Hi, in this video, I want to discuss a little bit more about the Jane Eyre story, where in the tail end of my last video, there were some things that I wanted to talk about the complementariness of twin flame experience, the complementary as well as a little bit of a opposite experience that can develop in a twin flame couple based on the two people, Jane Eyre and Mr. Rogers's journey, and then as well potentially explain it a little bit via Bertha, Mason, and St. John's journey as well. So in the last video at the tail end, and I did put this in the description section, but I felt another video also should be made. And the twin flame experience of love, basically twin flames are supposed to be two souls in one soul in two different bodies. So when you meet your twin flame, you are supposed to be the same soul meeting yourself in another body. So because you're the same soul meeting another person in another body, both of you have the same soul experiences and the same soul lessons and the same soul karma as well. That's why when in my previous video I talked about a few videos where I spoke about how Jane is clearing the karma between them, she's able to clear the karma for both of them, or Mr. Rochester is also able to clear some karma for both of them. When each of them makes any decision in life, every time they make a certain decision, it actually directly and indirectly is going to influence your divine counterpart or your twin flame. You don't know at the time, if you don't know you are a twin flame couple, you don't know how it influences the other partner or your divine counterpart, but it is influencing them nonetheless, irrespective of how much aware you are about your twin flame journey. So, which is what was going on throughout the story of Jane Eyre. In Jane Eyre, there's no concept of twin flame love that is discussed in Jane Eyre. But whatever choices they were making karmically about their karma, about clearing their karma, about balancing their karma with other humans, other souls, all of which was directly and indirectly influencing and impacting the choices related to their love journey as well. And this is how it unfolds for every twin flame, and it's just in a fictional universe. It has been explored in the Jane Eyre story, but this is how it is meant to impact you in a fictional universe as well, because it is a deep story where many elements present in Jane Eyre mimics the reality of many people who are twin flames and can, have similar kind of experiences like how Jane and Mr. Rochester had. So in that twin flame journey where the complementary thing was happening, or some similar life experiences were unfolding, both happened in the twin flame journey, or some life experience that actually directly and indirectly impacts their soul was happening to them. So in Jane Eyre is about half the age of Mr. Rochester according to the description in the book. And when she was around 8-10 years old, that is when her parents had passed away, and that is the time when she lived with the Reeds. But in the first 8 years of her life, when she was leading the first 8 years of her life with her parents, what was Mr. Rochester doing? Mr. Rochester, during those same 8 years, was in his 20s, likely 19 or 20 years of age when Jane was born. So, because he was in his around 20s age range, that is the age when he was married off to Bertha Mason. That is the age where, while he was having a difficult and challenging life experience with a little bit of lack of love coming in his life, because he got married to someone who was mad. He got married because of greed of his family. He was possibly upset with both his family as well as Bertha's family for duping him into marrying Bertha. He was upset with possibly himself also because he didn't understand the nature of Bertha before marrying her. So all of these things were going on. He was going through a very angry life experience and challenging life experience. And it's no coincidence that his twin flame was brought on earth during the year when he was going through these challenging life experiences. Because what happens is, if you have read material about twin flames, you will know that sometimes God plans it this way, that when you're going to have a very difficult life experience on earth, your divine counterpart, if they are also present on earth at that same time, in order to soften the karmic load on you, or soften your soul from being hurt too much, or being going too much into the darkness of things, at that time point your twin flame might be experiencing something else on earth which would help in softening the blow to your soul, so that your soul doesn't get corroded, so that your soul doesn't get too much impacted. So that's why only they had this 18-20 years of age difference between them. And when he was going through all the darkness related experiences of his life, related to betrayal from friends, family, partner, and a betrayal that is also can seem like a betrayal of God also, that why did God suddenly thrust him into this life with mad partner, or that he has now, he doesn't know how to deal with it, right? So he's going through all this darkness related phases, which is actually Mr. Rochester's dark night of the soul experience that was happening in his life when he married Bertha Mason, or all the choices that led to his marriage to Bertha, and after marriage to Bertha, when he found out what was going on in the marriage, all this betrayal related trauma were his soul shock experience and dark night of soul and awakening journey related experience. Because as a teenager or a 20-year-old, suddenly while all his friends are having fun, drinking, gambling, flirting around with women, here he is saddled not only, and some friends are possibly even married like him, but while they are having a happy married life, here he has a very very entirely different life than all of his friends. So he's clueless, he's in the dark, he doesn't understand what do I do now. He doesn't understand what should be the right thing to do, whether to support his family for getting married to this woman, whether to leave this woman, whether to flirt, continue acting as if he's not married. And he explored all of this in his 20s. And while he's doing all this out of the wildness of his heart, and the hurt that he feels, and the betrayal that he's feeling, and the rejection of the life that he doesn't want, because he's like, why do I have to suffer through this? These are all the kind of questions that would have been going on with Edward Rochester's mind. And because he's thinking like this, and he's going through all this darkness related thoughts, what was happening instead to his divine counterpart, who is Jane Eyre? Jane Eyre was born at that time on earth, and she was born in a very loving, love filled family life. So her parents were in love with each other. So let's assume she had a really good loving experience in the first 8 years of the life. And if she hadn't had that loving experience in the first 8 years of her life, 8 or 10 years, 8 to 10 years, she wouldn't know only how to be a dutiful wife and a caring caretaker of children. All these experiences wouldn't have unfolded in her if she hadn't been caretaken during the first 8-10 years of her life. So while he was going through a difficult experience of not having humane connection, or people who will understand his pain, or people who he thought his family is supposed to support him. So his family arranging his marriage with a mad person is something that is a great level betrayal, right? So all of these, where he thought he could trust his family, he couldn't do it. His friends also, while they are enjoying life now, he possibly got two sets of friends. One who might have been telling him, you have to work with the marriage because you can't do anything, you're married already. Or he was with those set of friends who were like, forget about her, just flirt around and live your life with whoever you can live your life with. And which is what he likely explored at that time during his 20s. So while he was exploring, dating others, having fun with others, sleeping with other women and things like that, because he possibly just gravitated in the few years after marrying Bertha into all these kind of lifestyle, where he was living in Paris with Celine Varens, Adele's mother, and all these things started manifesting in his life. And while that was going on, so in the first 8-10 years, he was going through all the darker experiences related to love and betrayal, and he was choosing also all the darkness related experiences, while she, being a child, Jane was just experiencing paternal maternal love and a loving family life. But then, because she was experiencing this loving family life, what happens to her divine counterpart is that soul benefit that she's getting for being caretaken by parents and loving parents, that soul level benefit comes to her divine counterpart as well. While he's not aware that someone is loving him during those 20 years of his life when he's been extremely wild, extremely rude and spoiled, and hating his family, hating his wife, he would have gone through a lot of hatred related, anger related emotions at that time. That's why he's a very brooding, described as a brooding personality also. So that darkness was there in his soul, that started building in his soul. But God wants, doesn't want any one of us to become too dark in life. So, and he had this journey of experiencing life with a filled with a little betrayal, because there is a higher purpose to his life journey, the higher purpose which won't unfold always in the lifetime in which you are experiencing these difficult life paths, the higher purpose that can unfold in a different lifetime for you, and some of it will unfold in the particular lifetime at which you are experiencing the dark experience. So while there was a higher purpose to his darkness, some of which he understood by the end of the story, and some of which his soul will not realize until after the soul dies and he becomes another body, and in that body he might realize the greater purpose related to the darkness he experienced as Edward Rochester. So while he was experiencing all this darkness in his life as in his 20s, Jane was experiencing parental and good love. But then what happened? Then in the next tail end of Mr. Rochester's 20s, when Mr. Rochester is 28 to 30 years old, that's when he went to Paris and started likely living together with Celine Varnes. And that is also the same time when while the shift in narrative happened to him, like he could have, just run away from his wife and been traveling the world, doing business work, other work. He could have been, in your 20s, you're also very passionate about work. Usually, men are usually passionate about work. So he could have been doing some work at that time, business related work or other work that could have kept him occupied in his 20s. He could have also flirted around with multiple women and just casually dated them. But everyone normally and naturally in their late 20s or early 30s wants to seek a life partner. Usually most people, if you are normally built, will at least start missing a stable life partnership as well. So because he was married, he couldn't explore that stable life partnership via marriage now. So that's why he went in to Paris, where he was living together with Celine. And when he's living together now with Celine, and he has a shift now, he wants a more stabler life. He doesn't want a life filled with just gambling or running around or flirting around. He wants some stable partnership in his life. That's why he was living together with her. And while he had that shift of life now from his 20s to 30s, where he has changed his lifestyle and he has gone from just dating around to living together with someone, at that same time only, when he's possibly exploring living together with Celine, is the time point when Jane is now also shifting. Jane's shift has happened because her parents have died. And because her parents, and this parallelism would have definitely happened in their life. So her parents would have died, and her parents have died, and she's now in the Reed scare. And in the Reed scare, while what was happening to her in Reed scare, she was being abused by them, she was being misused by mistakenly abused, or whatever was her brother telling that this is what she's doing. The mother will believe the brother's narrative, the cousin's narrative, and not Jane's narrative. So she was consistently getting punished and abused and not caretaken at all in their homes. And that life in the Reed's home, I think, happened for 1 or 2 years. And I believe if they compare notes with each other, it would turn out that these 1-2 years that she spent in the Reed's home would have also parallelly been the 1-2 years that Mr. Rochester was likely dating Celine. And in those similar 1-2 years when, she was getting abused, he, now being a complementary partner, he was actually possibly partially abusing the woman, or the woman was partially abusing her. Both were abusing each other possibly. So what was happening, and that's why only he doesn't believe that Celine's daughter is his daughter. Because if you when will you believe someone narrative that this is your daughter? If you find someone who is compatible with you, who was like a soulmate like relationship potential with you, at that time you will believe your soulmate like partner, or a living in partner, or whatever. But if you weren't in a soulmate like relationship, if you were in a very toxic or abuse filled relationship, or a very imbalance filled relationship, or lack of love filled relationship, at that time you know already that the partner you're sleeping with doesn't love you. You may know already, or start realizing. Initially you might get thrown into thinking that this person loves me, and that's why only he couldn't have set up a living together condition with Celine if he didn't feel that there was some mutual love between them. So there was maybe in the initial few months some love that was shown by the women, but many women know how to artificially show love that they can't fulfill after you actually live with them. So that was and if you're incompatible partners, then also men and women both can do this. You will end up, you may think that you are in love, or you might have been in love, but it is the superficial fleeting kind of love, not a long lasting kind of love you're feeling with someone when you are with someone who is incompatible, or at a soul level very different than your kind, what your soul needs in a partnership. So that's why only, well, Jane was being abused by her cousins and her aunt. uh, Mr. Rochester would have felt a little abused with Celine's betrayal as well, because she cheated on him also. So both of this, the abuse that she was feeling, he was also feeling via the cheating. He was feeling a betrayal while she was feeling abuse. And then she was also discarded, and here while she was discarded by Mrs. Reed and taken into sent to Lowood school, so that Mrs. Reed doesn't want to deal with her anymore. What was happening to Mr. Rochester? He was sent to he broke off things with Celine because he didn't want to deal with the cheating related issues and second layer of betrayal related issues. So he ran away from her also, and then he did whatever he did in his life, that he did in the next 8-10 years, which is a mystery. But most of his life was spent around trying to search for love. That much he had revealed to Jane, and doing maybe some work that he loves to do. So we don't know what is Mr. Rochester's work area, but he was likely working on his work related stuff or making money related stuff, because that is what generally most boys or men that age will do. After whatever betrayal you have to still lead your life, right? So even if you're a man or a woman, you will end up doing whatever you can best do at a time after facing some betrayal, and which is what he did. And while he was doing that, what was happening to Jane now in Lowood school, where he is like busy just working, what is Jane doing? Jane is also working, but Jane is working in a school where school's regimented lifestyle is there. Jane is also working. So Jane was bringing now what? Jane was living in a very structured school with a structured life. And until the 20s or early 30s, Mr. Rochester doesn't have any structured patterns or structured life possibly. He was just he was likely being a very wandering soul. So while Jane's life was getting structured, it is also very likely, because they are twin flames, Mr. Rochester's life also started now seeing a little bit of structure, because he's gaining now maturity in life. He's become a 32-year-old man, and 30 or 32-year-old man who's had disappointments in love. 2 times he felt extremely disappointed by people he loved. Now he wants some, he wanted to settle with Celine because he wanted some stability. But because he didn't get his stability from personal relationships, it's very highly likely he was now trying to get that via work experiences, via buying properties, via doing something else that would have brought some structure into his life. And while he was doing that, and I think Adele came under his care when she was a small child only, a toddler child possibly. And at that time when Adele came to his life when she was a toddler, 3-4 years later, this is also in the next 3-4 years what happened with Jane. In the next 3-4 years, Jane had very beautiful friendship with Helen Burns. and then Helen Burns passes away. So the time when Helen Burns passes away and she gets closer to Mrs. Temple, who was their school teacher, who was like a mother figure to her, she was getting a lot of maternal love, lot of caretaking. So while her soul was getting this maternal love, friendship related love, again their soul is now getting balanced, because while he's seeking love, she's not actively seeking love, because she's a child. A child will just experience whatever the child is meant to experience. So she's not sitting and actively seeking anyone's love, but obviously every child also needs love, every human being needs love. So while she is actively getting that love now from Miss Temple and from her friendship with Helen Burns, here Mr. Rochester is also actively seeking that. He's not getting that from the women he's dating, but because that soul level love is happening to Jane, means also it balances his soul up in a soul level as well. While in a personal life level, it was not doing anything to him, at a soul level, it was softening him. And that is the reason why only when Celine leaves Adele with Mr. Rochester, he doesn't discard her, because by then their soul had understood what it means to love a child. Or Jane has also been living in very poverty stricken conditions, right, as a child in Lowood School. And Jane was also an unloved child. So that soul experience has, even though Mr. Rochester doesn't know that Jane Eyre is his twin flame, even though his soul doesn't know that there is another body of his, like Jane is basically, it's the same soul in another body, right? So Mr. Rochester has no awareness that another soul counterpart of his is experiencing these things related to love, related to hardship of not being loved as a child. But while he consciously doesn't have that experience, what has now entered their soul level experiences, the soul level experience has entered about what it feels to be a unwanted child, what it feels to be a child who is not caretaken deeply by other people, what it means to be a child who is not even loved by the people who are meant to love the child. And this thing partly even Mr. Rochester experienced when his parents had betrayed him by forcing him to marry someone for money. So that betrayal had happened slightly to him and majorly to Jane. But because it had happened to, and this is how it works with twin flames, one of them, if it is a soul level experience you are meant to immerse in your soul, one of the divine counterparts might have, like, let's say 20 or 30% of that experience, the other counterpart will have the remaining 70% of that experience. So Jane faced the rejection of a child not being caretaken, not being loved too deeply for a long time, whereas Mr. Rochester faced it for a short while as an adult. And because he faced it as an adult, he was able to handle it like an adult also. As an adult, even if his parents are not caretaking him, he can take the agency to caretake himself. And that's what he had started doing slowly. He started being careful about, after Celine's ditching him, he had started becoming careful about who he should date, whether he should date. He started analyzing women a little bit more deeply. So he had started caretaking himself, even though in the first 10 years he didn't caretake himself in a really balanced manner, or he did whatever the norm was at that time of men facing similar situation like him, or even if they weren't facing similar situation, he was just following the standard patterns of what men his age do at that time. So while he was doing all that, he was not doing self-care, but that self-care now started internalizing in him, and it was important for the soul for him to now start becoming more careful. Why? Because again, Jane is amongst strangers. Jane is amongst people only except for Miss Temple. No one else is there who loves her when she's growing up in the rest of the years in Lowood School. So that internal experience is happening, like what it feels to be a scared child with only one adult loving you. That too, that adult has divided attention, because she's the principal also of that school by then, and she's got divided attention towards other children as well. So while she is a key important maternal like figure for Jane, apart from Jane, she being the school headmistress and teacher of so many other girls, her love will always be distributed amongst other children as well. So Jane doesn't get the singular form of love that you can get when you have actual parents in your life, or when you have a real deep loving partnership connection with a partner. That singular form of one-on-one love, one-on-one deep love is not happening in her life. That is the kind of love Mr. Rochester starts seeking as well, because it's the same soul having the same soul experience. So while he doesn't understand what is going on with Jane, his soul understands it and his soul is searching for it. And because his soul is searching and also understanding what it means to feel like a lonely child, he eventually ends up taking responsibility of Adele. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done that if Jane hadn't been going through all the life journey that Jane was going through. If Mr. Rochester and her soul didn't have this knowledge of what it feels to be a lost child. And she felt it deeply, while he felt it a little bit during his early 20s when he was married off. Then that's why he started responsibly taking care of Adele. And while he was responsibly taking care of Adele, that is when Jane Eyre also grew up. Now she is a teacher in Lowood School. She gets 2 years good teaching experience, and that is like the perfect time when he also, for 2 years, he was just likely just paying a little bit money for her upkeep, or getting, there was Sophie who was the nurse of Adele. So when Adele was smaller child, a toddler child, at that time he only paid for the nurse to look after her. But he realizes now the child also needs education. So the moment when Jane is also very set up to be a teacher is the time when he also understands that this child needs more education. She doesn't have any education in her life. She's getting some nursing related caretaking, but not getting the education that she deserves. So, and which is again, the education's value came into Jane's life. Like if Jane had been like her sisters Eliza or Georgiana, where they were from middle class family and good middle class family with enough funds, Georgiana's and Eliza's focus was not driven into education related activities that much, because at that time many people, the education of girls was not always a must have thing that girls got access to. But because now Jane's soul had access to what education can bring to a female child, and again it is a soul experience that is crystallizing in Mr. Rochester's soul also, because they are the same soul. That's why he valued that. Otherwise, many men during that age, if they haven't crystallized these experiences, understood the value of these experiences, what would they have done? They wouldn't have thought so deeply about teaching a child, or this child is not even his. They might not have deeply thought about caretaking a child. All of these things also he could have done. But because they're having the two bodies are same soul in two bodies are experiencing some divergent things necessary for them to do a higher purpose level work, and that higher purpose level work was now manifesting via Adele. So that's why he took care of Adele. He started thinking about adopting Adele. He started caretaking about focusing on her getting some education and things like that, which very few men at those times would want to focus on educating a woman, educating a girl child. Those things wouldn't have even occurred to some men if they were very irresponsible or unconscious, or their soul wasn't on a high vibrational journey like a twin flame journey. Then Adele's life would have been very, very different than what it manifested, because she was with Mr. Rochester, who was a twin flame. And then that was the right time of these two souls meeting each other, and that's why they ended up then meeting each other in Thornfield eventually, and their life paths then merged. And which is what happens also to twin flames. When twin flames are meant to merge their life paths, God will cause a series of circumstances and coincidences where you'll be exactly the right kind of a match for whatever your twin flame needs and what you need. So they both met each other's needs, and that's why their paths crossed in Thornfield. And then they were meeting each other's needs of companionship, each other's needs of bringing something different in each other's lives. They both were seeking deep love, meaningful love. So all of that slowly developed in their interactions at Thornfield. And then the rest of the story related to their love also has parallelisms, which hasn't been completely discussed everywhere, but their life would continue to have these kind of parallelisms even when they are living together with each other as a couple. That time also there would be this complementary yet a little different understanding of a experience, yet the same experience that will drive their souls to conclude to towards the same kind of conclusion. So when Jane values her education, Mr. Rochester also values education of girls. When Jane values that what a maternal figure can influence in a child's life, Mr. Rochester also values that. What an educator can bring into a child's life, he also values that. So he provides, that's why Mrs. Fairfax is there, Sophie is there, and Jane, three caretakers end up being there in Adele's life to give her a balanced kind of childhood that she's not getting because she's not with her biological parents otherwise, right? But despite that, she got at least some semblance of care and caretaking, like similarly how Jane had got bits and pieces of love from different women. Same thing now manifests in Adele's life. There were three significant women who influenced Jane, right? When after her mother's death, one was Bessie, then Miss Temple, and Helen Burns. These were the three significant female interactions that she had before she met Adele. And likewise, only it is not a coincidence, but it is exactly how universe plays the divine role in Twin Flames journey, that now three women caretakers have been presented by Mr. Rochester to Adele, so that she gets a caretaker to take care of her food and nutrition, a nanny to take care of her, a nurse to take care of her when she's sleeping and giving her some company, and a teacher to educate her about teaching related things, right? So this is how it turned out for the twin flame related aspects that has parallelism between Mr. Rochester and Jane. And now there is another twin flame related thing that happens to twin flames, and here both of them, Mr. Rochester and Jane, they could have gone completely off balance, but in order to maintain balance in their life, when they start learning the lessons related to the dark experience or a difficult experience they are holding in life, that lesson, if it crystallizes in their choices, is the lesson that then becomes a soul lesson for both of them. So it crystallized in Jane the value of education, the value of maternal and mentorship like figures. So all of these were crystallizing within their soul, and that's why it was manifesting also as a result in Adele related educational choices from both of them. And then what also was happening, and this is just one aspect, this was very clearly explained in the book, that's why I'm explaining it, but every twin flame couple will have something like this very crystallizing experience, soul level experience, deep level experience, meaningful experience that is meaningful to that soul itself for them to do some higher level work. All of this would be manifesting in your soul, and because both of them were very balanced souls, they got to have a balanced life with each other eventually in the end of the story. Whereas in my previous video, I speculated that it's possible that the way St. John's character was, his potential twin flame could have been a person like Bertha Mason. And why am I saying that is because of the infinity symbol of twin flames. In the infinity part, when two infinity, like two circular people are merging together at a central point, that is what infinity represents. And when you are merging at the center, that is when twin flames usually come together. When you are not merging in the center, when you are at the extreme ends of the infinity symbol, what will happen is your life paths can't merge. And Bertha Mason's characteristic was the extreme end of what a fiery personality will do, a fiery, impulse driven, always hot-headed and angry and resentful. Like she was experiencing all the darkness related to the fiery nature of any human being. Whereas there are other fiery women also who could be very angry, but they would only, if they're mentally in check, socially in check, they might only verbally say something, or say something and let it go, or not say anything at all but be angry about someone. But what would a sane person do? Sane person will make choices that if I'm not working out with you, I will leave you, like, which is what Mr. Rochester, being a sane person, did. That he sees that his marriage is not working with Bertha, he left her. He sees that instead of festering that anger or making that anger ruin his life, he left. He ruined his own life a little bit for a while, but he was not ready to ruin the joint lives with Bertha. So that was also a little bit of a saner choice only he had done when he had left Bertha, knowing that their marriage doesn't have a good mergeable path between them. Similarly, he also left when Celine was cheating with him. That's also something, a strict no-no for him in a relationship. So he again left her. Instead of holding a grudge, and this is what twin flames are supposed to do. You don't hold grudges about the darkness someone is bringing in your life. You just let it go. You forgive that person. And because Mr. Rochester was able to forgive Celine for whatever indiscretions she did, cheating she did, manipulation she might have done, even the adult related manipulation she is still doing. Despite all this, he still doesn't hold the mother's actions against the child. And this is what a twin flame is also supposed to do. You are not supposed to connect whatever the mother did that the child is also going to do. So that's why he was ready to now accept the child in his life. And he's not holding the mother, he's not punishing the mother, he's not punishing the child, he's doing whatever is best he thinks he should be doing given that scenario. And that maturity happens to him after the 10-year journey only of not having that maturity in him earlier, right? And then while his soul is crystallizing some lessons from Jane's aspect of the journey that Jane is having. So that's why only after 10-12 years initially he doesn't want to take care of Adele, but after a few years he does indeed start taking care of that child. And then so when Bertha is a very fiery, but Bertha is not that balanced personality, right? That's why only she's mentally ill. She doesn't know how to check her anger, or if she is angry, she doesn't know how to visibly work with that anger, or how to let the anger go as well. She doesn't let the anger go. She continuously fuels that anger, and that's why only she first starts with burning the veil. She then burns the bed of Mr. Rochester, and then eventually she burns the whole house down, right? And because all this is slowly festering in her, the resentment that why should he marry someone else, why isn't he mine, and she has been festering this for a long time. She was getting medicated for it, that's why she was possibly silent for a long time. But she was also a very clever woman, so you see she's likely faked also sometimes taking the medicine when she didn't take it, and as a result the medication didn't work on her, and those are the times when she would instead use the medication possibly to drug Grace Poole, or she knows when Grace Poole drinks and when she will be sleeping, so she would leave the room slyly and then come down to do all these antics. And that is where she was unhinged, because she was not making sane choices, she was making very sociopathic choices, or psychopathic choices, where antisocial personality driven choices. She has an antisocial personality disorder, where your antisocials are the people who, when you have a grudge against someone, you can let go of that grudge. If you're a fiery personality, in fact fiery personalities will just shout at you, show anger at you, and then they will let go of it. They will not usually, if you're a balanced personality, you will not remember it longer time, or you will allow it to just be just end whatever is very toxic. If you are very high level fiery, you use your fieriness to know where something needs to be ended, and you are at a high vibrational level of fiery nature. You know where something should be ended, why it should be ended, why it should not be continued, and you will burn the bridges with a person with whom you know that nothing good will come out of here. Or if you don't need to burn the bridges, you will make sure that at least things end in a good note, which is what Jane, and if you are a twin flame, you are a fiery nature, so that's why only he gravitated towards Bertha. He couldn't have gravitated towards Bertha if he didn't have the fiery nature as well. They both have fiery passionate nature, it's just that Jane's fiery passionate nature is hidden. Both of their fiery passionate nature is hidden. It only comes up in the confession time when they confess their love to each other. It also shows up in the end of the story, but throughout the book you don't see the depth of the passion in the way movie romances show it. because even though that depth of the passion is there between them, they're both also very practical minded people and balanced people. That's why they know when to balance their emotions, keep their emotions in check, when to allow it to flow. So, and these are all the experiences twin flames have to learn with each other, learn to navigate with each other. When you learn to navigate this with each other, that is when you get to have a life together with each other. But Bertha was not able to manage her fiery nature, and there was no one to teach her how to manage it well. There was no one to restrict her in a right way. If her family also likely had some antisocial tendencies, otherwise she wouldn't have had that genetically in her. So if everyone else around her also has some antisocial tendencies and similar kind of problems that she has, she's just manifesting it in a worse way. Everyone else is likely manifesting it in a little more subdued way. But it is still a wrong way to manifest grudges, hold grudges, be manipulative, be sly, be harmful and toxic, plot and plan to harm another. Because she got so mad with Mr. Rochester 2 times. When she burned Mr. Rochester's bed, she wanted Rochester to die. And the second time when she burned whole Thornfield, that time also she wanted Mr. Rochester to die. That's why only she's doing this, because, and these are all antisocial personality traits, that you can't take the pain of whatever you are going through, and the pain is so extreme and you don't know how to check your emotions, so you want to harm the person who has harmed you. So which is what antisocial personalities will do, and which is what she did. And this is and why I'm saying that Bertha is most likely to be a divine counterpart, like a person representative of how St. John's divine counterpart will be, is because St. John was also like Bertha only in a previous life. As Heathcliff, he was like that. And as Heathcliff, he was also destroying people's lives, but only difference between Bertha and now St. John is, or Bertha and Heathcliff is, Bertha is a fiery personality. She uses fire and instant burning. She wants to instantly end something. Whereas what is Heathcliff doing in Wuthering Heights? Heathcliff is ending things also with people, but he's coldly, calculatingly, slowly, deliberately, with a long-term game plan ending things. They're both antisocial. They were both, as Heathcliff, he was very highly antisocial. As Bertha, she is highly antisocial. So Heathcliff and Bertha also could be like divine counterparts, the divine counterparts who will not meet each other because they are at the extreme end of the twin flame spectrum right now. At the extreme end where they are doing very highly toxic things. So Heathcliff was doing highly toxic things to money people and accruing a lot of bad karma with them. Same way Bertha was also doing it. While Heathcliff was doing it to multiple people, Bertha being a fiery personality, she did it to 3-4 people. So whatever it is, the number of count doesn't matter. They were both harming people. So that's why they are very highly likely to be the same soul in 2 different bodies as well. It's just that the same soul in 2 different bodies now not being in balance, not understanding what balanced masculine feminine energy should do. They are showing the fieriness of the masculinity is showing, or fieriness. Well, fieriness is both a masculine and a feminine trait. How? The fire that destroys and ends things is a feminine trait, and the fire that lights up a spark is a masculine trait. Whereas coldness, the coldness that heals and soothes, is a feminine trait, whereas the coldness that coldly, calculatingly does some harm is a masculine trait. So both of which you need it in a equal proportion and in a balanced proportion and in a needed and aligned with God's purpose related proportion in order to have a balanced life on earth. But you don't get that balanced life on earth. You keep accruing bad karma on earth when you do not, you go completely off balance in balancing your own inner masculine and feminine nature and understanding your own nature. And this coldness and hotness is something both twin flames will experience at different aspects of their life. And whereas the if you believe that St. John is only Heathcliff, so as Heathcliff he harmed many people, then as St. John he was not consciously, he has become a better soul as St. John, so consciously he's choosing not to harm many people, but yet he was again ready to reel Jane into a life with him where he would have harmed her if she had gone with him. And he's not understanding that if she had left with him as a missionary, he would have subject her like a cruel, assistant, like do like a donkey, like donkey's work would be done by Jane. Like if he wants to tell Jane, go and teach 10 children, she has to teach 10 children, because he was that kind of a personality. Yet because he's still not left his coldness, his apathy is not gone towards humans, while he has changed from being very evil as Heathcliff to, or like very cruel as Heathcliff to not as cruel. So his soul has improved now, so his soul has evolved, but his soul still hasn't evolved into being a soul that understands that you can't have apathy, you also have to have emotions in your choices, you also have to have an emotional empathetic connection with the people you are working with, connecting to, wanting people to work with you, wanting people to marry you. You can't have a passionless marriage, then you shouldn't be marrying. Essentially that is what Jane was telling him when she's saying no, that you have to have some kind of passion, some kind of emotional connection, some kind of deep lack of apathy in order for marriage to work. You will see most women, when women are depressed in their marriages, either they are with men who are apathetic towards them, they are with men who are cruel towards them, meaning do not appreciate the women's feminine emotions, and in that way emotional cruelty is going on at that time, or they are with men who are emotionally unattached and don't want to create an emotional attachment with them. These are all the reasons why women suffer through depression in marriages, or even men. When men are married to women like this, where the woman is apathetic and cold and calculating, again the man will also feel like that in those marriages. That leads to the depression in their marriages. When you are in a relationship with a partner who doesn't have the balancing energy to complement you, or to supplement you, complement you, grow your soul in a way in which your soul needs growth. And when that happens, you will be very, very miserable with that person. And that's why in my previous video, when I said Jane understood that she will not get that life at St. John, is because when you have apathy present in your emotional equation with someone, and when someone is just wanting to use their power over you to draw you into having a life with them, both of it is a very cruelty led life experience you will have with a partner. If you consent to that kind of life experience with someone, you will be emotionally feeling very, very cruel and oppressed by them. You will also be, if they have used their power to influence another into just drawing you into a relationship with them, you will also feel abused by them as well. And she didn't want that experience, that's why she rejected that experience. And St. John now, while St. John was very cold, and in him the twin flame energy, even though he has a twin flame potential now, he can't spark, that twin flame spark can't happen in him if he continues to just be the colder version of humanity, a cold, apathetic, or narcissistic kind of personality, or antisocial kind of personality. At that time, you, even if you are a twin flame potential, you can't become a twin flame, because in order to be a twin flame couple together on earth, you have a higher purpose with God, you have a soul contract with God to do something on earth as a twin flame couple. Some of them will be doing subconsciously those soul contract related things. So girls education related things were, or children's education related things were subconsciously going on in the narrative of Mr. Rochester and Jane Eyre. Whereas and other life purpose related, disability related work was also going on with them. So these two things were going on simultaneously as a soul level experience for them. So whereas so in order for someone to now merge with their twin flame or come into a balanced life with their twin flame, both partners and counterparts have to crystallize that soul level experience in them, as well as not have apathy, not have because when you are antisocial, you do not think about society, you do not think about social welfare, you are very selfishness driven at that time. Most antisocial personalities are very self-focused, self-driven, and only thinking about themselves and the benefit they will get from any choice they make on earth. right? So which is what St. John was doing. He was still making a very selfish own personality driven choice of he his job is to be he has improved in his life, that he's not harming actively many people, he's also wanting to help many people. But the place where he has not improved is he's still apathetic towards the human condition, or apathetic especially towards how it impacts women when he is so cold and calculating and apathetic towards women's emotions. So until he understands the emotions of women, he will not be eligible to be on a twin flame journey yet. He is on the path to it, because he is showing all the personality traits that people will show when you are unconscious soul, when you are a less evolved soul. All of those traits are showing up both in him and in Bertha. Whether they are both going to be each other's divine counterpart will depend on many other factors than simply one being fiery and one being cold. But fieriness and coldness will be the natural progression of anyone. If Bertha is meant to have a twin flame counterpart in the world, not in that lifetime who she can mate with, but if her soul has a twin flame counterpart, that twin flame counterpart, while Bertha is very fiery, that person will be calm and cool and collected. And when both of them have balanced and understood how to work with both the calm and coldness as well as the fieriness of life, when that both essences of living has been crystallized in a balanced way for them, that is when you will meet your twin flame counterpart. So in this life she didn't meet, she died, but in the next life now, if she becomes a soul who is not mentally ill and she's actively working on controlling her anger, actively working on balancing her anger, actively working on understanding a personality who seems cold and cruel towards you, but Mr. Rochester wasn't really cruel. He seemed to be cruel towards her, but the cruelty was not present in just his choices. His choices were cruel, but it was not simply his choices that led to the cruelty of her life. It was multiple people's choices. So you have to also, as a balanced twin flame, start understanding that you can't just ascribe every life problem to just one person. Just one person is not your problem zone. She in the end made all her problems about her brother Richard Mason or about Mr. Rochester, but many of her problems were related to Mr. Rochester, were related to Richard Mason, were also possibly related to the way her family raised her, were also related to her own internal nature. So what can, and every religion talks about what you can't change outside of you. You have to you have to first change things inside of you. So in her life, as and like how Heathcliff couldn't change his inner nature as Heathcliff, Bertha couldn't change her inner nature or the cruelty of her circumstances. Bertha couldn't change as Bertha. And again, God will forgive Heathcliff and Bertha both when they are ready to do the work that their soul needs to do. God will forgive, God will give them chances. Lifetime after lifetime they will get the chances to improve themselves, to evolve from what they were previously, to become a better version of themselves, to understand better how to align themselves. And if they both have twin flame counterparts, the twin flames are also now experiencing the opposite experience. So if Bertha's twin flame is a St. John like character, Heathcliff like character who is very cold and calculating and manipulative, and Bertha is also manipulative, but Bertha is, let's say, 30% manipulative, Heathcliff was 70% manipulative. So that you have to understand when manipulation is okay to do and when manipulation should be absolutely no. But many people don't understand it. Many people think manipulation should continue on earth. Actually speaking, at a higher level, you shouldn't be manipulating any human being at all. So it's a very dark experience, and a dark experience that leads to continuous suffering on earth. But that suffering, if you do not want on earth, and unless you get to understand that suffering at a deeper level, how will you understand what is the harm of that suffering? So that's why only there are people like Edward Rochester and Jane who were manipulated by others, who experience that and who are crystallizing and understanding why manipulation is not a good thing, why being manipulated is not a good thing, why cheating is not a good thing, why betrayal is not a good thing. While they are experiencing that at a lightness of being experience, Bertha and Sinjin, they were experiencing at the darkness of being experiences where they still wanted to manipulate. Like Sinjin was trying to manipulate Jane into coming with him, which didn't work on Jane because that is the day when Mr. Rochester called her out, Jane, 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 and she got pulled out. Otherwise, she would have been magnetized also. So this was another thing that God did. God did this, and God does that this kind of thing with twin flames, where at the moment you're getting pulled too much into someone who is absolutely wrong for you or will harm you in your soul karma or soul journey, if you get trapped by them, that is the moment when God knows how to pull out the person as well who is in trouble and doesn't understand the trouble that they are going into. So that's why Mr. Rochester's call came to her, and she completely shut down. She forgot completely about Sinjin then, or his power over her, or any, because some people, Sinjin is also that kind of a personality who has the capacity to like hypnotize people into coming with him or doing whatever he wants them to do. He does have that potential, and that is also comes under the manipulation related experiences someone is experiencing in life. And when they're doing these kind of manipulations, when they are trying to influence power over another soul, they're doing a higher soul level bad karma, which again, I do not know the person who does a high level manipulative work, what is their karma. That is something who has done high level manipulative work and then got out of it can only explain how God will guide them to get out of it. But because I didn't do that kind of a work, so I can't talk about it. I'm not a high level manipulator, at least in this lifetime. I don't know how to manipulate, or but I have faced the brunt of people who manipulate. That's why I understand the characters of Sinjin and Heathcliff so much better, or Bertha also, her slyness and all those things, which is not narrated completely directly in their stories, but you can understand the background of their stories from what is already narrated in the story. And I hope this made sense. So essentially, if Sinjin has to become a twin flame, he again has to improve a little bit more in every lifetime. He has to improve when he is improving and changing and realizing the things that bring darkness to the world, bring suffering to the world, adds to bad karma in the world. And as he's healing and working on clearing those karmas, that's when you are at a diverse spectrum of that infinity, you're at the two extreme ends of the infinity. Slowly, if both partners, divine counterparts, are slowly doing their right inner work, then that infinity's distance will slowly get down and break down and end as you clear your karma, as you crystallize your soul purpose related experiences, and then you will potentially meet each other at the center, and that's when your life will merge in that lifetime. Because many twin flames meet each other throughout their life journey, different lifetimes of reincarnations with each other, but they may not have a merged life with each other. They may only superficially know each other, or be very indirectly connected to each other, or never know each other at all. But they will know about each other on the lifetime, or during that lifetime when they are meant to work with each other, do something higher soul purpose related work for God, involving each other. That is when you become aware of your twin flame journey. That's when you start becoming aware and understanding the meaning of all the past experiences of your life, or even if you awaken to your past life experiences, that's when you start understanding what was the reason for you to have a certain kind of experience with each other in a past life, or experience with other karmics in a past life. What is the higher purpose of it? What was the higher soul level need for you to go through some suffering, pain, karma, or happiness related experiences in your past as well as in your present? And what is it that you need to experience now in your present in order to align your life with the life purpose that is meant to unfold when you are on a twin flame journey? Because twin flames have usually high level soul purpose, high level work they might have to do with God, and that's why only doing inner work, connecting to God, meditating, aligning your karmas, balancing your karmas, ending your bad karma with others, all of these are important part of the soul experience you have to go through as a twin flame. I hope this was informative. Anyone has questions, comments, please drop a question, comment. I would love to hear from you, and thank you for watching this video. Have a great day.